scholar has reached uncertain conclusions and inferences were drawn, the data were analyzed properly to my mind. We will discuss, we will present in detail. Uh, and so far as the research type of research is concerned, 28 years ago, I had faced such problems when there was experimental design and two groups were experimental and one was control group. And unfortunately, researcher was not able to get randomized data because of school setting. School was not permitted to get randomized data. So classroom setting that is already existed in school setting, and when pre-testing data was observed, pre-testing data were observed. Unfortunately, two groups which were chosen was not identical. The problem was how to compare the pre-test post-test data when pre-test variations are existing in different groups. Fortunately, in Sonal's case, he has uh, he has acquired data in pre-testing tests that was similar in experimental and control. It is he is fortunate in this matter, despite the uh, existing classroom situation, he is able to get randomized data. That is, in pre-test case, control group and experimental group, mean score of pre-test and experimental groups are similar. These are pretty not different. That is similar groups were observed. So it is beneficial to her. It is beneficial for researchers that post-test two groups or three groups may be compared without considering the pre-test score. Because in pre-testing situation, control group and experimental group are similar. But there may be the cases where pre-testing pre-testing situation variation in groups are seen. Variation means uh, significant variation in different groups are seen. In such situation, the problem becomes more difficult to analyze. And lastly, she has used uh, analysis of covariance technique to eliminate the effect of scientific uh, to scores. And it is, of course, a fine work to my mind, and I request uh, research scholar Kumar Singh to present your pre-submission report so that we may be familiar, we all will be familiar with the types of features what our findings have been output, what we value by output. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning to everybody, and Namaskar, Principal Ma'am, Namaskar, Brijesh sir, Namaskar to all the delegates who have joined. मेरा नाम सोनल है और आज हम सब जैसे कि अनिल सर ने हमको बताया कि आज मेरे प्री सबमिशन के लिए we have all joined here. So with the blessings and guidance of all my faculties and my guide, my supervisor, sir, I'm going to share my screen to present my presentation. Can you please confirm if my screen, if my presentation is visible so that I can start?
Yes,
बिल्कुल सब
visible.
दिखाई दे
Please
रहा,
carry
आप
on.
शुरू करो बेटा।
जी सर, जी मैम, जी सर। सो जैसा कि सर ने बताया, मेरा जो रिसर्च का टॉपिक है उसका द टॉपिक नेम इज इफेक्ट ऑफ ब्लेंडेड लर्निंग एंड ट्रेडिशनल लर्निंग मेथोडोलॉजी ऑन अचीवमेंट इन साइंस इन रिलेशन टू साइंटिफिक एटीट्यूड। So, first of all, we'll discuss what was the background of this study. So, there were few key points which made the basis and the background of these studies. First of all, the importance of science learning. So, what is the importance of science learning? Um, uh, Science learning is essential for human advancement, of course, and it also nurtures the curiosity, and it drives innovation across cultures and disciplines. And science learning is also very fundamental to human progress and innovation, and it is critical in addressing modern challenges like climate change and pandemic. So, and there are few contemporary developments which also forms the basis of science education, which are following like digital revolution. It has enhanced the accessibility to science education to all the areas where science education were not very much accessible and few decades ago. Virtual labs, simulations, and online resources. It has democratized the learning of science as a whole. It also emphasizes on critical thinking and real-world problem solving. So, as we are aware that National Education Policy 2022. So, in accordance with the NEP 2022, as it has envisions the transformative science education. So, in this research, the significance of this research also extends its applicability in the Indian context, such as for example in the NEP 2022, which as we know that NEP is emphasis on experiential learning, integration of technology, and learner-centric pedagogies. The findings of this study will provide a timely evidence to support its implementation. So, with that, and then there are few challenges in science education, such as structural and pedagogical challenges in Indian classroom. We also see that there are lack of resources and qualified teachers in rural areas, theoretical focus undermining the scientific thinking. In my research topic, I have also taken variables such as which is scientific attitude. So the background of this study also has its root in developing a scientific attitude amongst students. So what is scientific attitude? Here, scientific attitude is a set of mental disposition and behavioral tendency that reflects a rational, objective, and inquisitive approach of understanding the world. So, in scientific attitude, when we talk about scientific attitude, we talk about a, a student or a child which has few traits, which is curiosity, open-mindedness, critical thinking, logical reasoning, objectivity, and willingness. Most important, willingness to accept evidence, even if it challenges the existential belief. So it requires some pedagogical intervention for cultivation of scientific attitude among the students, which is very fundamental, as I just mentioned how important is the scientific attitude. And also scientific attitude has been a key variable in the science education, because when we study science, it is not just about acquiring factual knowledge. It also involves nurturing a mindset which values the evidence-based inquiry and rational thought. When we हम जब एक सोचते हैं कि एक बच्चा जिसके अंदर scientific attitude हो, हम what we envision in that child, we envision कि that children ask meaningful questions, और जो भी उसको information मिलती है in regard to that question, he should be able to evaluate that information critically, and he should be able to engage deeply in the learning task. It should not be just some peripheral thing that he just learns and wrote it and then write it in the examination. He should have a scientific attitude which he can retain, and have a sustained interest in science over a time, because scientific attitude cannot be developed in one class or a one go. So it's a thing which is a it's a temperament which we develop in the meantime of learning science. And so they were and then I also wanted to see how traditional and blended learning forms affects the achievement in science. So what is traditional learning was effective in foundation knowledge, useful where digital access is limited, but blended learning has a feature which allows it to be a self-paced, interactive, multimedia-rich learning. What are the advantages of blended tools? It enhances the understanding of topics which are abstract in nature. It uses 3D animations and simulation which give students a hands-on practice so that they have a more interactive knowledge in that. It also increases students' engagement, and it also adapts to various learning style which includes their visual, auditory, and kinesthetics involvement. And what were the so in this study we also see a background of need of systematic reforms such as curriculum must be updated and context relevant. Assessment should test understanding and application, not rote memory. And two, quality science education um, must be ensured. We should have a equal access to quality education. So, what were the need of this study? There were the in this study, as we know that um, so as we know that we have all, despite all their progressive goal in the education system, but we still see that there is a ground reality in Indian classroom, which face several structural and pedagogical challenges. Particularly in rural and under-resourced areas, it lacks well-equipped laboratories, qualified teachers, and up-to-date teaching materials. So we have also seen that science is often taught in a theoretical and examination-oriented manner with little room for experimentation and creativity or curiosity. So the emphasis on textbook learning and memorization undermines the very essence of scientific thinking. As a result, students may achieve good grades but fail to internalize scientific methods or develop a sustained interest in science. So it is just as I have mentioned in my previous slide that it is not just about content knowledge but also about fostering a scientific attitude and temper. It becomes essential to explore how these can be developed. So we can develop a scientific attitude among the students. So this was the purpose of the study, and to compare how these two to compare how these two learning materials, blended learning and the traditional learning, which is the traditional learning, how it affects the achievement in the science knowledge, and it also focuses on academic achievement, development of scientific attitude, and science education. What were the relevance of this? What was the relevance of this study? So it was aligned with global goals to build a critical thinking, inquiry, and technological literacy. It explores how pedagogical models shape achievement and attitudes, and it also recognizes that science learning must go beyond memorization to include evidence-based reasoning and, and problem solving. What were the implications for the stakeholders? For teachers, it will help to choose suitable instructional methods on class needs. It will also help curriculum developers and policymakers, and will inform for the creation of blended and balanced science curriculum. Teacher training institutions will also guide teacher training institution to equip teachers for blended instructions. What is the future vision of this research? What I'm visioning that it will contribute. The research will contribute that it might provide empirical evidence on how instructional strategies affect both performances and attitudes. It will also bridge the gap between theory and classroom practice with practical, actionable insights. It promotes a holistic, inclusive, and future ready model for science education. And it will also support reforms that prepare students for a technology driven and the complex world of science. This is the statement of the problem, which was the title of my study: Effect of Blended Learning and Traditional Learning Methodology on Achievement in Science in Relation to Scientific Attitude. These are the operational definition of the key terms, which is effect. Effect means it is a measurable impact of methodologies on achievement and attitudes in the study. Blended learning means it combines face-to-face teaching with online educational materials. Traditional learning is solely face-to-face instruction without resources. In the scientific attitude is a student's disposition towards science, including curiosity and willingness to engage in inquiry. And achievement. Achievement encompasses a range of performances outcomes that reflect an individual's attainment of specific goal in instructional environment, just like schools. So these were the few research questions with which the research was started. The first research question was, what is the current level of scientific attitudes among students learning science? And the second question was, what teaching learning methodologies are currently being employed? And third, how does traditional learning methodology students achievement, and how does blended learning methodology students affect students achievement? So, in keeping these questions, research questions in mind, four objectives were formed for this research. First was to find out the scientific attitudes of students learning science. Second objective was to study the effect of traditional learning methodology on achievement in science in relation to scientific attitude. Third, to study the effect of blended learning methodology on achievement in science in relation to scientific attitude. To compare the effect of blended learning and traditional learning methodology on achievement in science in relation to scientific attitude. And these were the hypotheses and null hypotheses which were formed in keeping in mind to the four objectives we found. There is a positive scientific attitude toward learning science among students. Hypothesis number 2. Traditional learning methodology positively influences students' achievement in science in relation to their scientific attitude. Hypothesis number 3. Blended learning methodology positively influences students' achievement in science in relation to their scientific attitude. And the null hypothesis: no significant difference exists in science achievement between blended and traditional learning methodologies. So, as we discuss about the research design, the methodology and the research design of this research, so this present study falls within the ambit of applied educational research because it seeks to explore the practical pedagogical strategies that can enhance students' achievement and attitudinal development in subject of science. That is why a quantitative approach was suitable for this inquiry, because it enabled the researcher to do the systematic collection of numerical data, statistical analysis of learning outcomes, and objective comparison between different teaching methods. More specifically, a quasi-experimental design, which is a robust and widely used methodological approach in educational setting, where a random assignment of individual is either unethical or unpractical. So when we cannot do the random assignment of sample, that is why the quasi-experimental design have been used, because we were aiming to study the causal effect here. So this quasi-experimental design specifically, it was a pre-test and a post-test control group design, and it was driven by the need to study the real classroom under realistic conditions while maintaining a degree of experimental control. In educational environments, particularly in school system which are governed by administrative rule and standardized timetable, randomizing students across classes is really feasible, really rarely feasible, because none of the school will allow to mix and match the different section of the classes to have an experiment in there. Therefore, in this research, the quasi-experimental design was chosen as because it used the intact classroom group with the group which was already present in the school. That was used which was that was used for a collection of for the intervention, and it was presented viable and ethically acceptable alternative. It allowed the researcher to work within the existing school structure without disrupting the natural learning process, yet provided enough control to access. And then the p-test and post-test structure enables the researcher to access the baseline equivalence, so that to have the control and the experimental group before the intervention. So when I did the pre-test, so that we have a baseline, so that we know when we are starting with the intervention, there is equivalence have been gained. So to calculate the gain score, determine this experimental setup, which had one group which was experimental group, and then one group which was a control group. So there were two groups for population. So there were two groups in this study. The one was experimental group and one was a control group. Pre-tests were administered on both the group, and to gain the baseline status. And then after when I was choosing the sample, there were where I came across a potential limitation which were handled because I thought that it will come in future. So there were two potential limitation which I thought that it will come. Which first was selection bias, because the design does not because we are not doing a random assignment of these individuals in the students. So there was a possibility that the difference between groups existed before the intervention. So this was addressed by randomly assigning the intact section. So we did not mix the a section which were already in the class. So for that, the researcher did use a pretest and the covariance of ANCOVA. And then testing effects. Repeated exposure to the same test may have influenced participant performance. To address this potential bias, the researcher developed a parallel forms of pre-test and post-test, ensuring equivalent levels of difficulty and discriminatory power. So, minded it was not both the groups did not have a same pre-test, but it was an equivalent pre-test. So it was ensured that the changes in score could be attributed to instructional method rather than variability in this testing tool. And then in this design, there were the independent variables were the two methodologies, blended learning and the traditional learning, and the dependent variables were the scientific attitude and the science achievement. For population and sampling, the sampling was done in 3 stages. So the first stages was first stage I did a random sampling, where I did a fishbowl method to discard bias, because it was a big area, big population area which I had to choose. So Varanasi district was chosen out of the by the fishbowl method, and then again by fishbowl method the Kashi Vidyapit block was chosen, and then the Kashi Vidyapit block had 12 clusters. So among the 12 clusters, the Kandwa cluster was chosen as by the fishbowl method. And the level of sampling, I did a purposive sampling. So in the in the Kandwa cluster, there are 17 schools according to the website on the government. So all these 17 schools, the letter was sent to all these 17 schools for permission to conduct the intervention. Researcher got only the responses for only 3 schools. 3 schools where the researchers chose only one school. There I did a purposive sampling, because to keep in mind of all the research comes, because pedagogical and whatever logistic feasibility were a point. And then there was a third stage of sampling, where experimental and the control group were chosen. This was done by selecting two intact sections of class 8 from the selected school, and the classroom level randomization preserved the integrity of quasi-experimental design. The design also reduced the threat of contamination, students from different groups sharing information, as both the groups were taught the same content in parallel under control conditions. So there were 30 to to 33 students were there in each the classes, but 30 students were taken for both the groups. The researcher have had taken out students which had large absenteeism. So 30 students and 30 students from both the classes have been chosen um, for the intervention. And then the intervention was done with the blended and the traditional learning for 20. It was a 20-day program which was chosen, and both they were taught with blended learning. One was taught with traditional learning. Two similar topics of science education was chosen to do that. And then after the intervention, the data was collected, and which was a pre-test and poster thing. And then all the tools were researcher made. There one was scientific attitude scale, scientific achievement test, and then there were few teaching modules and blended and traditional groups which was used for the intervention. And what were the implementation and ethics? So real classroom were chosen with minimum disruption, as I already mentioned. An intervention period had equal time, content, and the teacher facilitation for the both the group. And data collection was done. All the tools were piloted before doing, but not at the same population. But the piloting was done not at the same population, but the same grade of student from a different population to check the validity and the reliability and the content alignment of all the tools to enable the statistical analysis and reduce bias. This is a diagramical explanation of my the methodology we have chosen. So the methodology shows that comparison of change over time. So by capturing data at 2 points before and after the intervention, this design made it possible to analyze not just the final outcome but also the degree of improvement, which is more insightful metric and in educational studies. सर आगे बढ़ने से पहले एक्चुअली मुझे मेरा स्क्रीन नहीं दिख रहा है. आई जस्ट वांट टू कंफर्म कि मेरी आई एम विजिबल एंड ऑडिबल.
Yes, it is more visible and audible. Please
Visible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And then with the comparison of change over time, control of co-founding variables were also taken care of. So this design allowed the use of ANCOVA, which is analysis of covariance, which help to statistically control for initial differences between the groups. This enhanced the internal validity of the study by reducing the influence of extraneous variables such as prior knowledge, teachers' influence, or economical background, and the scientific attitude as well. And this design has feasibility and ethical soundedness with the control of variables. That this design respect the school norms, ethical protocols by working within the structure of existing core, because the researcher did not want to disrupt the normal functioning of the school, because it already took high measures to finding the required school to do the intervention. So it did not. So it was so that the intervention can be done successfully, and then it also has a educational relevance because the intervention occurred in a naturalistic school environment. The findings have direct implications for the classroom practice. They are not artifacts of controlled laboratory or condition, but reflections of what happens when blended learning is implemented in real classrooms. So this is the summary of the methods of analysis, which I will just go quickly through about the analysis of the. So there were the four objectives were accompanied with the four hypotheses to be tested. So our first objective was to find out the scientific attitude of students learning science. So for objective 1, the analysis of pre-test data. The analysis of pre-test data from both the control and the experimental group revealed a strong baseline equivalence, and the mean scores of these two. So the mean score of these two from both the control and experimental groups revealed a strong baseline equivalence. It revealed a strong baseline equivalence. The mean scores of the two groups range. It ranged from 132 to 135 out of maximum of 220, which reflected a moderate to positive level of scientific attitude even before the intervention. So it was done when the pre test was done on scientific about scientific attitude before the intervention. The similarity in standard deviation and the score ranges confirm the homogeneity of both the group with minimal variance and no significant outliers. Such alignment at the baseline stage was crucial for ensuring the fairness and validity of studies comparisons. While the experimental group recorded a marginally higher mean, the difference was statistically insignificant, as confirmed by the independent samples T score. Therefore, it was reasonable to conclude that the both the groups started on equal footing. They have a very similar scientific attitude scale on. They have a very similar scientific attitude, and any observed changes in the post test phase could be confidently attributed to the respective teaching methodology rather than the pre-existing differences. And for objective two, the finding demonstrated a significant improvement in the control group science achievement following traditional instruction, because we were learning we were taking the impact of some traditional learning on scientific achievement. So the mean score increased from 11.8 to by 11.8, supported by a decrease in standard deviation from 5.4 to 4.8. It indicating an improved consistency in the performance. The progression of both minimum and maximum score was from 15 to 26 and 33 to 45 respectively. This highlighted the overall gain across the learning spectrum. The central tendency measured also shows upward trends. The median shifted from 25.0 to 37.0, and the mode was shifted from 27 to 39. So these improvements were further validated through a paired sample t-test yielding a t-value of 12.56 and a high significant p-value of 2.5 2.43 48. Sorry. So this confirmed that the improvement in score was statistically significant and not due to change. Even in absence of specialized intervention, traditional teaching demonstrated a positive impact on academic performances. So we are here, traditional teaching can so here the hypothesis number two, which posits that traditional learning methodology positively influenced the students' achievement in science in relation to scientific attitude. Thus, while the numerical gain was limited, the traditional methods still played a meaningful role in nurturing the students' interest and orientation towards scientific thinking. The third hypothesis, the third objective for the third hypothesis, it was addressed about the effectiveness of blended learning, and the results were strikingly positive. The experimental group demonstrated a substantial improvement in achievement score, and then the findings were reinforced by a pair of sample t-tests with a t-value of 20 to 24, 20.24, and a p-value of 1.19, indicating a statistical significant and positive impact of the intervention. Um, the experimental group not only exhibited a higher gains in performance, it exhibited a higher gains in performance, but also displayed an improved equity and inclusivity, making a strong case for the pedagogical effectiveness of the blended learning model. The results led to the acceptance of hypothesis number three, which states that blended learning methodology positively influences students' achievement in science in relation to their scientific attitude. And objective number four, which was addressing the comparison of the two methods which we used for the intervention. So the it revealed that experimental group consistently outperformed the control group across all performance indicators. The mean score of the experimental group was 42.7 versus the control group, which was 6.3 marks higher than that of the control group, which was 36.4, suggesting the superior conceptual understanding under the blended approach. The experimental group also had a lower standard deviation, which was 4.1 which for the traditional group and 4.8 for the experimental group. It reflected the uniform achievement among students. Additionally, the range of scores were narrower in experimental group, pointing toward reduced disparity. The maximum mode was 42 versus for the 39 in the 44 versus 39 respectively for blended and traditional learning and teaching. Further illustrated the efficacy of blended instruction in promoting academic excellence and inclusivity. So the difference in the gain scores 17.3 for the experimental group versus 11.8 um, was for the control group. So it was highlighted the greater impact on the blended by the blended approach. So these findings were statistically supported by an independent sample t-test as well, and the null hypothesis was rejected that there is no significant difference in the methodology for scientific achievement. And furthermore, the analysis of covariance was also conducted to control for the influence of scientific attitude to on the post-test scores. The results show that even after adjusting for attitudes and the teaching methodology of instruction remain the method of instruction remained the most significant factor affecting their achievement. This provided a strong evidence for rejecting the null hypothesis as well, and there is no significant difference in scientific achievement related to the scientific attitude between student taught through the traditional versus the blended learning. These are the few key findings of the research. So blended learning offers a clear advantage over the traditional method, as we saw in the analysis. It improves the students' achievement. It also enhances performance consistency. It supports inclusive and equitable education. It also aligns with the NEP 2022 National Education Policy, which is promoting experiential, technology integrated and student centric learning. It is more than just a tech upgrade. It is a blended learning. The blended learning is a true pedagogical innovation, and it also strengthens the conceptual understanding, engagement of scientific thinking, and empowers educators to build high-performing, equitable science classrooms. So this was the conclusion of the study, that blended learning proves more effective in the enhancing achievement and fostering scientific attitude. And the choice of teaching methodology is a stronger determinant for academic success than scientific attitude alone. And what are the few educational implications of the study? So for teachers, the blended learning will help in enhance the academic achievement and scientific attitude. It will encourage shift from lecture-based to interactive student-centered pedagogy. It will also enable personalization, self-paced learning, simulation, collaborative tasks, call for professional development in digital and instructional design, and teachers must evolve into facilitator of inquiry and innovation. It will also facilitate in the development of scientific attitude among the students as well, which is also a key term for our research. And for school administrators, there is an urgent need to upgrade a digital and lab infrastructure. ICT investments and regular teacher tech training essential. Support lesson planning that blends synchronous and asynchronous mode. Promote peer learning feedback system and tech integrated instruction. It monitors blended learning outcomes using evidence based tools. For policymaker, it supports the NEP 2020 goal, which is experiential, inclusive and tech integrated education. Recommends scaling blended learning in rural and underserved schools. Revise curricula to include blended module as mainstream pedagogy. Allocate funding for digital resources in multiple languages. For students, improved science performance and stronger engagement with students, fosters autonomy, curiosity, and digital literacy, helps low achievers through flexible and self-paced learning, because self-paced learning is one of the most important aspect of blended learning. It builds 21st century skills like problem solving, communication, and collaboration. For cross-stakeholder insight, scientific attitude should be a core learning goal and outcome. It requires an inquiry-based project, real-world task, and ongoing assessments, and embed an experiential science opportunities across grades and context. For teacher training institutions, redesign pre-service and in-service programs to include blended lesson design, digital content creation, blended assessment strategies, and also emphasize interdisciplinary, collaborative, and ethical teaching practices. While doing the study, there were there are after completing the study, there are few delimitations of the study because which were reported, and these are following. The study is limited to only grade 8 students for developmental appropriateness and curriculum relevance, and the research confined to the subject of science only. Other subjects like math or language were excluded. It was conducted in Kashi Vidyapit block of Varanasi district from UP. Results may not generalize to other regions because it was a mix of rural and other unrural setting. And there were only total 62 students, 34 control group and 34 experimental group selected by purpose and convenience sampling. And it measured only the immediate effect of instructional method, not long-term learning retention. And the data collected using researcher-made tool, scientific attitude scale, scientific and the science achievement test, validated for this context only. And it included only school with basic digital infrastructure and internet access. And study materials only study measured only science achievement and scientific attitude. It did not assess other outcomes like motivation and digital skills. What should be the suggestion for further research if done regarding the same topic or related topic with the related topic? So the study can be expanded studies across diverse regions and goals and socio-economic background to enhance the generalizability. Include other grade levels or conduct longitudinal research to assess long-term impact on scientific literacy and motivation. And it should use mixed methods like interviews and observation to explore student experiences, engagement in blended learning environment, to investigate how teacher training and digital skills and instructional belief that blended learning outcomes that affects the blended learning outcome, and to study the role of parent involvement, especially in early grades, to understand its effect of blended learning success, and to develop assessment models suitable for blended learning that measures critical thinking, collaboration, and inquiry skills. That would be all. I welcome any question. Thank you very much.
Now, we will move on to the next session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay.
Social answer session as well as the feedback session with
अनिल जी
expert panel discussion.
अनिल जी
Correct.
अब मुझे लगता है अनिल जी अभी जुड़ नहीं पाए हैं। इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर जितने भी लोग जुड़े हुए हैं आप सभी का मैं महाविद्यालय परिवार की ओर से स्वागत करती हूँ।
Next session, we have clubbed
अनिल जी
three question answer session as well as a feedback session with expert panel discussion. Yes, ma'am. जी मैम.
अनिल जी हाँ थोड़ा सा समय का ध्यान रखिए। आई थिंक मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि पैनल डिस्कशन में आपने मिश्रा जी का नाम लिया है, पांडे जी का नाम लिया। पांडे जी जुड़े हैं क्या इससे?
Yes, ma'am. जी मैं जुड़े हैं.
आशुतोष पांडे, डॉक्टर आशुतोष पांडे जुड़े हैं क्या?
जुड़े हैं सेम आंसर से.
Hello.
ऑफिस से.
हेलो
जी मैम जुड़े हैं.
यस मैम हम लोग जुड़े हुए हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
इशू
डॉक्टर
है
आशुतोष
उनको,
पांडे सर भी यहाँ पर हैं,
सर्वर
प्रेजेंट
का,
है
इसलिए
मैम।
उनका काम नहीं कर पा रहा है। अनिल जी
हेलो
हेलो अनिल जी अब आगे बढ़ाते रहिए, कार्यक्रम को रोकिए नहीं, आगे बढ़ाते रहिए। कोई जुड़ पाया है नहीं जुड़ पाया, कार्यक्रम को आगे जारी रखिए।
जी
ठीक
मैम,
है?
आवाज आ रही है हम लोगों की?
नहीं पांडे जी की आवाज नहीं आ रही, आपकी बीच बीच में आ रही है, बीच बीच में रुक जा रही है।
साथी जुड़े हैं मैडम सेम हैंडसेट पर।
अच्छा लेकिन आवाज नहीं आ पा रही है।
हाँ थोड़ा
तो अब
नेटवर्क
आगे
इशू।
जल्दी जल्दी आप लोग कार्यक्रम आगे बढ़ाइए, चूंकि मुझे ऐसा लगता है इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर जितने लोग जुड़े हुए हैं सब लोगों ने बच्चे का जो सोनल सिंह है इनका प्रेजेंटेशन आप लोगों ने सुना और आप लोगों ने उस पर अध्ययन भी किया है ऑलरेडी। क्योंकि ये निर्देशन मिश्रा जी का है और बच्ची ने अपना सारा प्रेजेंटेशन जितना दिया है सारे एस्पेक्ट्स पर उसने प्रकाश डाला है। कोई ऐसा पहलू उसकी थीसिस का नहीं है जिसको उसने अनटच रखा हो जिसके बारे में न बताया हो। तो मुझे लगता है एम्स, ऑब्जेक्टिव, मेथोडोलॉजी, की पॉइंट्स ऑफ द थीसिस सारी चीजों को उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से प्रेजेंट किया है। तो अगर आपका कोई सुझाव है, अगर कोई सुझाव पैनल में लोग देना चाहते हैं तो आप लोग अपना सुझाव आमंत्रित है, सुझाव दीजिए ताकि कार्यक्रम को हम लोग आगे बढ़ाएं। जितने लोग जुड़े हैं मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं, अगर आपका कोई सुझाव है, कोई क्वेरी है, कुछ भी आपको जानना है थीसिस से संबंधित, इस टॉपिक से संबंधित।
यस मैम, मुझे कुछ चीजें जाननी है।
हाँ बिल्कुल पूछिए, आप लोग जानने की कोशिश करिए।
फर्स्ट तो आपने यानी स्कॉलर और सर से आपसे सर निवेदन है, इस रिसर्च में हम देख पा रहे हैं कि आपने रिसर्च क्वेश्चन भी इंक्लूड किया है, हाइपोथेसिस भी है और आपके साथ ऑब्जेक्टिव भी है। जो हमारा एक आइडियल फॉर्मेट है यूनिवर्सिटी के गाइडलाइन में, चाहे वो रेगुलेशन 16 हो, 18 हो या 22 हो, उन्होंने रिसर्च क्वेश्चन और हाइपोथेसिस दोनों के साथ कोई कंबाइंड स्टडी नहीं दी है। मॉडल यानी कि जो एक आइडियल हमें फॉर्मेट दिया है कि या तो आप रिसर्च क्वेश्चन सेलेक्ट करिए, अदरवाइज हाइपोथेसिस सेलेक्ट करिए। तो आपने दोनों चीज़ों को एक साथ किया है, तो सर इसके पीछे आपका क्या वैलिड आर्ग्यूमेंट है, हम इसे जानना चाहते हैं सर।
Dr. Anil, I think Dr. will give answer, and I also anticipate that he will also give suggestion regarding this. But before any researcher has some problems in mind. That is, I think it may be termed as a research question. So, otherwise, for example, in this case, effectiveness of blended learning and traditional learning is studied, and without any empirical evidence, actual classroom setting, if you are saying something that is speculation, not ground reality will not be reflected. So, research question is, in any research question is primary task. Without research question, how can we lead in any research? So I think research question is a primary basis. So far as guideline of UC is concerned, it cannot ignore the research question. It cannot ignore the objectives. It cannot ignore the hypothesis. Hypothesis is also a conjectural statement regarding solution of the problem. That is at least so relationship between two variables, and that is testable also. So I think these are important things, and it cannot be ignored in any research. And I welcome your suggestion. What you want to say, I said that I will.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sir, with your permission, I would just like to add one point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anil sir, for your question and for pointing this out. So, जैसा कि सर ने बोला कि research question जो था कि these were the few questions which arise when we were conducting this research. So, and then objectives were formed and hypotheses were, formed basis of these questions. So these are not the basis of like doing the research. So as sir has already mentioned, then when you do a research, there are few research questions in your mind when you start a research. So this is the only point of consideration of research question. And then thank you for pointing it out. I will discuss with sir, like if we still want to include keep this in the research thesis, or we should discard it in future for mentioning in the thesis when final printing is done.
Okay, in the presentation we have not seen your chapterization scheme, so please explain your chapterization scheme.
Uh, chapterization, which you may, okay, so you're asking which chapters I have included.
Yes.
I'm really sorry, I think I have missed to mention this in the presentation. So
Yes.
there will be chapter 1, which will be the introduction, obviously, and then there will be a second chapter, which is the review of related literature, and then third chapter, methodology. Fourth chapter will be the data analysis, and the fifth chapter will be findings and the implications, and which will also have the delimitations and further research suggestions.
In your presentation, we have missing the theoretical aspect of your research. So, which theoretical framework have been used in your research? Could you explain it?
Okay. Can you? Okay, I will just take a moment.
Yeah.
As I have already mentioned in my in the when I was doing my presentation, the background of the study.
Okay.
Because the importance of,
We will
yeah,
watch in a recorded session. Now we will
sure, yeah.
move on a next question. Please explain your key argument of your research in short. What is your key argument of the your research?
Do you mean critical reflection from my side?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say so after doing this research, I would say I would conclude this in few pointers that blended learning has obviously has a potential, and it has already showed in my research that it has a strong impact on the as a instructional method, but it is not a one, as we say, that not a one size fits all thing, because we have to consider all the delimitation, as I have mentioned in my study, that access to the education, access to the infrastructure, and proper training for of the teachers and the policymakers. Sorry, not policymakers, the teachers when they are doing the in-service training. So these were considered that this can be limitation and critical inspection, and and then what resources are we using, it doesn't matter, but the instructional method, the person who is doing these interventions should also have a scientific attitude, and have should have a scientific temperament to imply these methods. And also there are very other insignificant barrier which came across during the study, as when we do something like these intervention in school or settings. So this was a very controlled environment, because I did since I did a random sampling and then I did a purposive sampling to conduct this research. But when we are implementing it in a school setting for real, so we have to make sure that all the children are on the same pace. So these were the critical reflection from my side.
Okay. Thank you. Last question. How can you check your reliability and validity for the primary data? Please explain statically method for it in shortly.
Okay. So it's going to be a little difficult for me because I took help with sir.
No
Sir
issue.
for check.
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, can you please help me here to explain this? I would take sir's help here.
Dr. Aminji, you have raised a nice question, which is very important question, I think, because testing tool, which is implied, if it is not reliable and valid, we can't get reliable and valid conclusions and inferences. So far as reliability, I am not giving the information solely from myself. I am Secondly, I am consulting the information what he has conveyed to me about reliability. She has uh, she has established reliability and validity both, uh, because both the tools, achievement test and scientific
Scientific.
attitude scale, both were developed and utilized by the researcher, and she has established reliability and validity. For reliability, she has mentioned internal to assess the internal consistency of the test. Researcher implied Cronbach alpha coefficient, and it was mentioned, the Cronbach alpha was mentioned, and the second uh, method of establishing reliability was test retest method,
Yes, sir.
and uh, she has mentioned that test retest reliability coefficient point uh, 80 or something is mentioned in this study. So I think test retest reliability for achievement test was established, and for second tool, that is scientific attitude scale. Now I am recalling it, scientific attitude scale. She has uh,
Sir, 0.83 in high reliability.
Okay,
the
thank you, sir.
scientific.
Thank you, sir. Now is the time for expert panel discussion. So I am inviting to Principal Ma'am, Dr. Astos Pandey sir and Mishra sir. Now, what is your opinion about this research? This is a panel discussion session.
डॉक्टर आशुतोष पांडे जी।
जी मैम।
हाँ, अब ये बताइए, अभी पूरा हमें लगता है कि आप लोग जुड़े थे, हो सकता है कि कुछ टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम रही हो, बीच में आप नहीं जुड़ पाए थे।
नहीं
तो
मैम, हम लोग
बच्चे
यहीं पर ही थे,
स्कॉलर,
बट थोड़ा सा माइक का इशू था, इस वजह से
हाँ,
जी।
नहीं वो मैं समझ सकती हूँ, थोड़ा सा दिक्कत होती है ऑनलाइन मोड में कभी कभी। तो पूरी थीसिस के बारे में टॉपिक से लेके पूरे कंक्लूजन तक रिसर्च स्कॉलर ने अपना प्रेजेंट कर दिया है, और एक चैप्टर का चैप्टराइजेशन का नाम भूल गई थी, उसको बाद में अनिल जी ने क्वेरी किया और उसने उसको सुधार कर उसको भी जोड़ दिया है। मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है कि सब कुछ जितना इन्होंने काम किया है एज ए रिसर्च स्कॉलर और मिश्रा जी के गाइडेंस में, तो अगर कोई आप लोगों को लगता है तो आप लोग सुझाव दीजिए। मुझे लगता है कि इनका एम, ऑब्जेक्टिव, मेथोडोलॉजी, सारे पॉइंट्स को इन्होंने रेज किया और सारे के बारे में इन्होंने सुझाव भी अपना बाद में दिया है। एक चीज जो मुझे समझ में आ रहा है कि जो ये केवल एक लिमिट में सीमित किया गया था, इसको थोड़ा सा जो इन्होंने अपने सुझाव में लिखा भी है कि विविध छात्र आबादी और शैक्षिक संदर्भों तक विस्तारित किया जाना चाहिए। तो अगर आप लोगों को लगता है कि इसको कुछ और इसमें ऐड ऑन करने की जरूरत है तो आप लोग बताइए। स्वागत है मिश्रा जी, डॉक्टर ब्रिजेश कुमार मिश्र जी।
Yes, ma'am. I think she has learned how to learn. She has acquired the ability of interpreting how to interpret, and I am also learning from her study. I shall minor somewhere minor mistakes may be changed. I think other experts like Dr. Anilji and Dr. PhD from research cell coordinator on behalf of research cell coordinator, he will suggest some ideas about it. I think she has done nicely. She has completed work with great dedication, and I am also learning from her studies because this was ये मेरा पुराना अनुभव है। करीब 28 साल पहले मैं इस तरह की समस्या प्रॉब्लम फेस किया था। तो उस वक्त डिजिटल डिवाइस नहीं थी, तो लोग किताबों के माध्यम से लोग सीखते थे। तो हमको याद है कि उस वक्त हम एनालिसिस के लिए साइंटिफिक कैलकुलेटर इस्तेमाल करते थे, तो बड़ी कठिनाई होती थी कि हम एनालाइज कैसे करें, और करीब करीब 5 to 6 मंथ ये एनालिसिस में बीत जाता था। जो डाटा हमारे पास आता था उसको पढ़ने समझने और एनालिसिस करने। अब हमारे पास डिजिटल डिवाइस है, बहुत सारे सॉफ्टवेयर हैं, वी आर इन बेटर पोजिशन to analyze the data quickly. Another problem is to collect the data from ground reality, and mostly we should collect the information. Another will be other task may be performed by using other type of systems. So she has given me insight how to describe data in better position. 28 साल पहले जो मैं जिस चीज को मैं डिस्क्राइब कर रहा था उससे बेहतर ढंग से उन्होंने डिस्क्राइब किया है डेटा को। हम बहुत गंभीरता से एक चैप्टर हमने बहुत गंभीरता से पढ़ा, उसको देखा कि एनालिसिस का एक यूनिक टेक्निक इन्होंने इस्तेमाल किया, जिसमें कि with the help of very simple descriptive statistics like mean, median, that is known as the ABC of statistics. With the help of that very statistics, she has described data, educational data in a very nice way. I give thanks to the scholar for her work and dedication.
धन्यवाद मिश्रा जी। धन्यवाद मिश्रा जी आपको। और अब मैं रिसर्च सेल कन्वीनर और मेंबर डॉक्टर आशुतोष पांडे और अनिल जी, अगर आप लोगों को आप लोग अपना थोड़ा समय का ध्यान रखिए, हम लोगों को कॉलेज भी पहुंचना है, तो अगर आप लोग कुछ इसमें शामिल करना चाहते हैं तो आप लोग भी अपनी बात रखिए।
जी मैम, ओवरऑल हमने जो डिस्कशन सुना उससे ये पता चलता है कि ये थीसिस ठीक तरीके से इस पर काफ़ी काम किया गया है, और जो एक थीसिस का फ्रेम, कॉन्फ़िगरेशन और फाइंडिंग्स होनी चाहिए वो थीसिस में रिफ्लेक्ट होती है। तो जो कुछ भी डिस्कशन के दौरान थोड़े बहुत पॉइंट्स रेज किए गए उनको अगर थीसिस में इंक्लूड किया जाए तो ये और ज़्यादा बेहतर होगा ओवरऑल सेल की तरफ से। और बाकी पर्सनली भी मैं इस थीसिस को आगे रिकमेंड करता हूँ कि इसको सबमिशन की तरफ भेजा जाए।
धन्यवाद आपको आशुतोष जी। और मैं इतना बढ़िया प्रेजेंटेशन, देखिए हर जगह स्कोप तो रहता ही है कि कुछ आगे और उसको बेहतर और रिसर्चर आए और उस पर बेहतर और अपना रिसर्च और करें और सजेशन दें, लेकिन जिस तरीके से सोनल सिंह ने अपना प्रेजेंटेशन दिया है, हर एक चीज को उसमें उन्होंने शामिल किया है, बेझिझक उन्होंने अपना प्रेजेंटेशन दिया, ये निश्चित रूप से सोनल सिंह बधाई की पात्र हैं। मैं उनको बधाई देती हूँ और अपनी अग्रिम शुभकामना देती हूँ। एक बार पुनः जल्दी से जल्दी आपकी थीसिस सबमिट हो, पब्लिश हो, ताकि दूसरे बच्चे भी उससे कुछ सीख सके और आगे के शोध में उसका उपयोग किया जा सके। थैंक यू, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सोनल।
थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू।
लास्ट सेकेंड लास्ट पार्ट पर हम चल रहे हैं, जिसमें कंक्लूजन रिमार्क मेरी तरफ से रहेगा। वोट ऑफ थैंक्स डॉक्टर अंशुमान सर से मैं अनुरोध करूंगा, निवेदन करूंगा कि आप तैयार रहें सर वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए। कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क्स के तौर पर सर मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि डॉक्यूमेंट, ये प्रेजेंटेशन और एब्स्ट्रैक्ट तो हमने ऑब्ज़र्व किया ही है, कुछ थीसिस के चैप्टर भी हम ऑब्ज़र्व कर रहे थे, मिश्रा सर के साथ देख रहे थे, तो उसमें कुछ जो इसकी फॉर्मेटिंग स्टाइल है जिसमें फॉन्ट का कुछ यूनिफॉर्मिटी नहीं है, इसके साथ साथ फॉन्ट साइज, टेबल नंबर, फिगर नंबर, इसमें यूनिफॉर्मिटी नहीं मिली डॉक्यूमेंट में। तो हम चाहेंगे कि फाइनली सबमिशन से पहले ये जो छोटे से कुछ पॉइंट्स हैं इन्हें शॉर्ट आउट कर लिया जाए। और मैं ये भी चाहता हूँ कि आप इन सारे मामलों के लिए वीर बहादुर सिंह पूर्वांचल विश्वविद्यालय के PhD रेगुलेशन को एक बार ऑब्जर्व कर लें। इन केस यदि वो डॉक्यूमेंट आपको नहीं मिलता है तो आप हमारे रिसर्च सेल से उस डॉक्यूमेंट को रिसीव कर लें, और उसमें उन्होंने ओवरऑल सब कुछ डिस्कस किया है कि किस स्टाइल में कितना मार्जिन रखना है, फॉन्ट साइज क्या रखना है, टेबल और फिगर्स के रेफरेंस के सारे स्टाइल आपको ओवरऑल एक मैनुअल दिया हुआ है। तो हम ये चाहते हैं कि आप उसे एक बार ज़रूर देखें, और अंततः मैं भी रिकमेंड करता हूं कि फाइनली आप इस थीसिस को सबमिट करें। मैं अब अंतिम पड़ाव की ओर डॉक्टर अंशुमान सर को आमंत्रित करता हूं वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए।
थैंक यू सर।
सर
अंशुमान जी आपका माइक ऑन करिए। अंशुमान जी माइक बंद है आपका। अंशुमान जी, अनिल जी जरा फोन। हाँ, आपकी माइक की आवाज नहीं है।
जी सर जी,
ठीक है,
आवाज आ रही है?
जी
जी सर,
आ
बताइए।
रही चलिए।
इस आभासी बैठक के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सभी को, और सर्वप्रथम प्राचार्य मैम को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि जो आज हमारा कॉलेज इस पड़ाव पर पहुंचा है कि हम यहाँ बैठे बैठे भी एक प्री सबमिशन करा ले रहे हैं। ये बहुत बड़ी चीज है हमारे कॉलेज के लिए, और शायद पहली बार ऐसा हुआ है। तो इस सुंदर आयोजन के लिए प्राचार्य मैम को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, और हमारी टीम को जो रिसर्च सेल है उसको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, और खासकर अनिल जी जिन्होंने इतना सुंदर आयोजन किया है उनको बहुत धन्यवाद। और खासकर सोनल जो है आपका मैंने काफी देर सुना, और इतना अच्छा प्रेजेंटेशन शायद ही किसी का रहा हो, तो इसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपको भी। और चूंकि ये 1 घंटे पहले हो गया, समय दिया गया 10 बजे दिया गया वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए, हम लोग 1 घंटे पहले हैं, तो इसके लिए भी सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। सब लोग इतने पहले एक मंच पे आ सके, तो पूरे कॉलेज परिवार को हमारी तरफ से और सबकी तरफ से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और आपका शोध कार्य उत्तम हो और सबके लिए हितकारी हो, ये अग्रिम शुभकामनाएं हैं।
थैंक यू सर।
चूंकि
तो
समय
हमारे विचार
अभाव
से
है,
इसको पूर्ण किया जाए।
चूंकि समय अभाव है, सबको कॉलेज भी निकलना है। मैं देख पा रही हूँ मिश्रा जी अभी घर में है, आप लोग घर में हैं। मैं तैयार होके बैठी, मैं तुरंत भागूंगी, इसलिए ये कार्यक्रम थोड़ा मैंने ये टाइम से शुरू हो गया था। 8 बजे आप लोग जुड़ नहीं पाए, इस बात का आप लोगों को कहना हो मुझे है, तो 8 बजे सब लोग जुड़ गए होते। पैनल बाकायदे टाइमिंग के अनुसार ही चला है, बढ़िया कार्यक्रम रहा है। इसके लिए मैं एक बार फिर अपने रिसर्च सेल और उसके सदस्य विशेष रूप से अनिल जी को बधाई देती हूँ। प्राचार्य मैडम को सिर्फ एक कार्यक्रम को आयोजित करवाना रहता है, लेकिन उसके पीछे जो हाथ पैर जिसका चलता है, जो मेहनत होती है, वो आप लोगों की होती है। तो अनिल है, मिश्रा जी हैं, ये लोग कई दिन से लगे हुए थे। आशुतोष पांडे चूंकि कल इनके यहाँ कुछ शारीरिक दिक्कत थी बच्चे को, इसलिए वो नहीं जुड़ पाए थे समय से। आज उन्होंने अपना सहयोग किया है, तो आप सभी बधाई के पात्र हैं। और विशेष रूप से जो मेरी स्कॉलर है सोनल सिंह, इतना बढ़िया प्रेजेंटेशन इन्होंने दिया है, और थीसिस इन्होंने जो काम किया, काम भी इनका बहुत बढ़िया है। और इनके प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए थीसिस रिकमेंड हो गई है। अब सबमिशन के लिए कुछ आंशिक सुझाव है, उसको मिश्रा जी से निवेदन करूंगी उसमें ऐड कर लीजिए। एक बार पुनः सोनल को बहुत बहुत बधाई, ढेर सारी शुभकामना। और समय अभाव के नाते हम चाहते हैं कि मैं यही अब लीव ऑन करूंगी और मैं कॉलेज के लिए निकलना चाह रही हूँ। एक बार फिर आप लोगों को बहुत बहुत बधाई और धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू।
धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद मैम।
थैंक यू सर।